What's up, squad? This is Brandon from the Bantu Sun. Thank you so much for joining me today. So, just got through reading some articles about Indian imports of Russian oil on the decline. That's correct. India has worked with America and they're holding true to their deal. Who knows how low they're going to go, but Indian import levels of Russian oil are considered to be down by to 2022 levels. So what happened with Russia is that, of course, Europe has historically been Russia's outlet. With their have all these resources, all these goods, and of course they have a capital-rich continent right there in Europe. And when they cut off, obviously, as we said before, there's only so many places that can replace Europe, and that's going to be India or China. Other than that, it's too far. It's not as capital rich. It's just not feasible. And what happened? You immediately saw imports or Russian exports to India and China go up, 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 up. Now, President Trump looking to him in Russia piece by piece by piece. And I think this is really great to call out, right? And it shows you how foreign policy has been in sync. Biden did the same thing. The escalation on Russia, the sanctions on Russia, kind of spearheaded with Biden with the invasion of Ukraine. But it's two different methods, but the goal is the same. President Trump is being a different way. You know, he goes in, he takes out Venezuela, boom. He ensures, and then he talks to allies about cutting or limiting or curtailing Russian imports. He's constantly berating European leaders on their reliance on Russian resources. So Europe and India now are cutting down on Russia. So, and then there leaves one, right? That leaves China. And President Trump recently talked about his plans to go visit China. And I already know what that conversation is going to be about. Da 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 da, Russian oil, da 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 da, Taiwan. And I think President Trump, obviously, after the moves he's made in the Western Hemisphere, he's probably not going to be big belly aching about Taiwan. I think American establishment or the Western establishment has already conceded Taiwan quietly because I don't think anybody's willing to fight a war for Taiwan. Right now, Taiwan is integral to the global infrastructure, and I think America and both China and America wants to buy time. I think America wants to buy time to get on top of its resource security, securing those supply chains, getting ready for confrontation with. I think what they want to do is be able to figure out a different way to leverage China. You can't leverage them demographically. So how are they going to leverage them? Resource rise. This is why Russia is so important to the Western peace. This is why I think they're looking for regime change. They're looking to bring on someone that can take orders and get on board with the West. That is what all this is about. They can come to Putin as equals, but Putin has too many opinions. He has his own ideas on how the world should be shaped, and he's going to talk about fairness. And really, America and the West really don't want to hear that. They want to say, "Hey, this is a show. These are the bad guys. Come when we tell you to come. Leave when we tell you to leave." And Putin wasn't going along with that game. And now you have this situation now where they decided, okay, he's a nuclear power, right? You just can't bully them or disrespect them. So what can they do? Try to take advantage of their niceness, and that's what it is, niceness, right? Because Russia didn't immediately go to use nuclear bombs, which would have been catastrophic. And Russia is trying to take out Ukraine the old-fashioned way, and they are paying dearly for it. The ratio is absolutely insane in Ukraine's favor. So Russia is slowly being bled out, and there's all types of stories coming out right now of all types of human trafficking as their schemes and plot to get people overseas and bring them over. And not to say that Ukraine is much better. I've seen and heard of videos of people kidnapping all people off the street in Ukraine for conscription. But this is a slugfest between Ukraine and Russia. At the end of this, Russia is going to be extremely weakened, and Ukraine is going to be extremely tough because they have to pry their fingers from the Russian bear, and that is going to instill them with so much independence and pride and identity that is so antithetical to what Russia is and everything it stands for. Who knows if those countries will ever be aligned for another millennia? It's going to be so much bad blood, which is really interesting considering the relationship of these countries a mere decade ago. So you have the situation where the West is slowly weakening Russia. Oil is roughly around the mid 60s. That's not too bad. Many people believe that the break even for oil prices for Russia is around $40 a barrel. So right now, prices are still 50% above that. But America also holds, no pun intended, America holds a trump card because they have Venezuela. And who knows how long that's going to be flooded into the markets. And that's the thing. India is saying, okay, what do I need more? American technology and capital or Indian oil? And they said it's oil everywhere. I need that technology and capital. And that's why India made the decision that it made in doing so. So it's Russia and China now. And you know that situation has to be exhausting for the Russians because I know the Chinese are getting bare bottom prices for the Russian oil. I don't think China has any great love for Russia. Xi and China, I see that Xi and Putin, a lot of people talk about these guys are close friends. That's irrelevant. China has a lot of axe to grind with the West. They have a very long memory. And China is, as far as I think, they believe they can beat any country, any combination of countries. The Chinese are very high, very confident in themselves, justifiably so. I think I just saw that New Year's gala event where they had robots that look pretty much human, and they were showing the before and after of only 1 year of the development. So China is the Middle Kingdom is that, and before 1500s, China was seen as the center of the world. All those spices and silver and gold, um, those were used, especially the metals, to buy things from Asia. They bought the spices from South Asia, and they wanted to buy the goods and hardware and dishes and potteries, the silk. They wanted all these things from the Chinese, and Chinese really didn't care anything for what Europe or the rest of the world had to offer. So this has always been a nation that was very confident in its self and its ability to serve itself with little regard for the outside world. So I think China understands that they're number one, number two, depending on what metrics you're using as far as economy wise. But they think they can probably establish a good buffer or margin on this peace trajectory. They feel as though their way to success is constantly playing catch up in the short term, and then eventually they also pass the West, and the West won't be able to stop them. Their point is not to invade Taiwan, but the ability not even to have to invade Taiwan, and Taiwan will fall to it, as it was said about Cuba to America, will fall to it like an apple from a tree, because Taiwan would be so reliant or so in desire to be with China, and that's a natural evolution, I guess, in the Chinese mind. But they do have old borders in mind. This is a country that was victimized due to colonialism, and parts of its nation ripped from them. One of the countries one of the primary benefactors being is Russia. So I don't think that history is lost upon the Chinese, but I think the Chinese has a different approach, and it's really interesting to me because can anybody name one strong ally that China has fostered? They've always been in cahoots with the Pakistanis, but that's about it. I can't think of one country that would genuinely come to the Chinese aid because of mutual interest. You may say Russia, but Russia, that would be more out of necessity than some real kinship, right? Putin, I still think, is a Western minded person. And he talked about himself about joining Western civilization, but he felt as though when it was time, he thought there was no civilization there. So at the end of the day, you have Russia on the edge, fighting for his life, slowly being bled dry by the war in Ukraine. You have the threat of lower oil prices on a horizon. And you have President Trump, which some would say is probably going to be the friendliest President Putin will come across in the American administration. So there may be an opportunity to make a deal some way, somehow. I've heard there's been rumor about a possible investment deal, but I don't think the West wants an investment deal. I think they want Putin gone. They want leadership that they control in Russia, and they want to use that influence to get another nuclear power, to get the world's largest country within the camp, to secure the Arctic and its resources. All those things are done once Russia comes into the fold. And from that, they can figure out ways to flank and control or at least heavily influence China and Russia going forward. So this is definitely a situation evolving. I'm really love to hear your thoughts on it. So if you have an insight, make sure you comment below, like, share, subscribe if you enjoy the content. Until next time, take care. Bantu up.